Hello, my name is Margaret Donor, and I haven't done a video for a while, but I decided to start adding some videos to my YouTube channel. And I wanted to begin with something from my newest publication, which is called the Book of Merlin. And if you don't know about it, you can receive it as an audiobook and also as a print copy, obviously. And chapter 15 in the book talks about the Ascension path, and I thought this was really helpful information, so I wanted to share it with the YouTube audience as well. A lot of you feel or believe you're on an Ascension path, and yet the idea of what that is or what you're going to experience or what you go through has been very vague and unclear for many people, so I wanted to help clarify it by sharing what had come through me from Merlin. The first level of the Ascension path is called the waking up, and it's the stage where you suddenly realize that consciousness is beyond the human form, beyond your mind. You might see ghosts. You might have experiences where dead relatives or loved ones start to communicate with you for the first time. You begin to understand that when you die, although the physical body dies, the consciousness and the spiritual body, what we call a spiritual body, doesn't. And it's a very exciting time. And when this starts to happen to people and they start to wake up, they feel like they're at the in level. They feel, as it says in the book, like a toddler who takes their first steps and says to mommy, "Oh, I'm a big boy now." Because to the toddler, that's a huge deal to be walking. But to an adult, obviously, it's the first steps. And so it's a very exciting first stage awakening to the potential of your soul and your consciousness to exist outside of the physical form. After you kind of move through that and you complete that, you move on to the second level, which is often called the book falls off the shelf level before the digital age. And the idea is that as you start to go on your spiritual journey and you become a seeker, guides will help you by giving you exactly what it is you need to grow. And in the old days, when we would walk through bookstores, we would find ourselves drawn to exactly the right book, or it would be right there, or it would literally fall off the shelf. And there's an excitement about this because you suddenly realize that you're not alone, you're being supported by these unseen energies that you just realized in level 1 that they exist. And so it's kind of new, it's fresh, it's exciting, and it's a lovely level, really. Then you move and the book falls off the shelf to, wow, bring it on. This is great. And you start to seek community. You start to find what is that you need in community support. And that's when you first start gathering in workshops, in groups. Some people may be commune, some people may be an ashram. There's a feeling that you need community support and that everything is working to support your journey. Now, it doesn't mean that through all these stages, even the first 3, that everything in your life is going to go perfectly smoothly. That wouldn't be the planet Earth. But there's an excitement, just like a young child, during these first 3 stages. And I think that in the book, one of the things that is very important to understand about the next stage, which is the 4th, is that in the 4th stage, the initiate, as Merlin calls them, begins to see and understand what humans call the dark side of the Force. They might actually begin to feel and experience psychic attack. Um, it's often also the stage where maybe you become disappointed by your guru. Um, you feel that the community lets you down in some way. Maybe there's conflict, maybe there's betrayal, and um, you realize that maybe everything isn't going to be like this smooth path, and it kicks you off the seeking. Really, the whole purpose of it is to stop you from seeking only outside the self, and to begin to develop true mastery by the next stages that you're going to go through, which is developing inner mastery and beginning to understand that God is within you, and that you don't need all these gurus and everyone else to tell you how to do this, how to do that. Maybe you've already learned to meditate through your community, you've learned how to channel or connect with angels, and that's worthwhile. But there comes a point when true mastery requires the initiate to step away from those things. And so I think oftentimes the betrayals that happen are done or given. The gift in them and the lesson in them is where to create boundaries and how to step away from community and begin to rely on the self. Then we get into the fifth level. And in the fifth level, this betrayal of community and of self deepens. And you go into a place where you make a decision. Am I going to return to the normal world and stop my seeking and my ascension path? Or am I going to take the scary leap to self-actualize and to believe in what my truth is, and to seek my own unique path? And so the fourth level, where you have these psychic attacks and you have this learn about dark energy and then you experience these betrayals, are all setting you up in a way to begin to go deeper and to become more self-reliant. And remember the whole gift, lesson, blessing. In every event, if you look at it with the gift, lesson, blessing that is attached to the event, you will move along in your ascension path. If you start falling into victim and blaming others, then you won't move forward, but you'll be regressing yourself. The sixth level is when the initiate understands that they must clear their own karma and master their fear. If they're going to proceed, they realize that shadow cannot be run from or ignored and must be met with full awareness. And this is often called the dark night of the soul. That's the name that seekers have given to that stage, which is when you feel you've lost everything and it strips you of everything, and so you can now rebuild in an authentic way. So after these sort of middle stages, you start realizing, I have to look at what karma, what did I do in past lives that has brought this energy to me to heal. Not to punish, but to heal and forgive. But you begin to realize that you are not always a victim, that you have also been a perpetrator. You begin to understand the nature of the Tao, of the dark, the light, and karma. And as you do your investigation into your past lives, you realize, I've been male, I've been female, I've been black, I've been white, I've been poor, I've been rich. I am all that is. I am all these things. And it's a very profound level. And often, in fact, I wouldn't even say often, always has to be done alone. Cannot be done through others, must be done through the self. So then we're going to move on to the seventh level. And this is when you emerge from the dark night of the soul. You emerge from your shadow phase into a world that you see with more truth and more reality. You've shed the rose-colored glasses. You're not going to fall for what I say in many of my books are Hansel and Gretel candy houses. You're not going to fall for the guru who lures you in with false promises and sugar-coated veneer. You're going to be much more truthful about what you see. And because you're in mastery, you learn to hold it, which is hard. You learn to hold the dark and the light. You become closer to the Tao, which is that yin-yang symbol. You become closer to your own mastery through the shadow work you did. And I always remind people of what Carl Jung said, which said that you don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light or beings of light. You become enlightened by making the shadow conscious. And this is exactly what Buddha did when he was attacked by the demons and the demon Mara. And he turned to Mara and he said, "I see you," and immediately achieved enlightenment. Both of those individuals are expressing the same idea in just a different way. And finally, we get to the 8th level. And the 8th level is this wonderful level where the initiate becomes like a bodhisattva, like a Buddha heart, which allows them a full-hearted and fully awake consciousness while maintaining detached empathy. At this point, the initiate is able to see the darkness and discuss it without fear or attachment. They are able to understand the role karma plays in existence and to honor the quantum fabric while also being in service to it with love. The initiate returns to the world, but in a different manner. Much like Jesus walking through the world with love, yet also a kind of detachment. In other words, he didn't get drawn down into such depression by walking through the leper colony. He allowed the love of God to shine through him and heal those who chose to be healed by him. The initiate is ready to accept the dictates of the higher self, no matter where that leads. When the initiate unconditionally loves the self, they realize that all the rituals and worship was done from a deep-seated sense of unworthiness. I know that's going to trigger a lot of you, but think about it. There's no longer a need to worship deities greater than the self, because the self is indeed God. Now, that doesn't mean that you become big-headed. In fact, it's just the opposite. That ascension level is when you're the most humble and with the least ego. And so that allows you to become a conduit for pure spirit, as Jesus was. So these levels are what you're going to go through, and hopefully this has been helpful to let you ask yourself, well, what level am I on, and how am I approaching it? So thank you so much for listening, and like I said, I'll be doing a few more in coming days. Thank you.